essentially forgot to celebrate America this year might be because they were too busy celebrating Donald Trump's claims that he would fix whatever Donald Trump thinks is wrong with America.
Nobody knows the system better than me. Which is why I alone can fix it. When I take the oath of office next year, I will restore law and order to our country. I am your voice.
Now, I am your voice is actually a fair claim. He does speak for some people, although you would kind of hope that they would then react the way most people do when they hear their own voice, which is to say, oh shit, I don't actually sound like that, do I? That is fucking horrifying. The RNC taught us that a party which used to be organised around a set of shared principles is currently organised around one man. And given that that is the case, his judgment is pretty much the only thing that is important when considering who to vote for in November. So to that end, I would like to show you something he said recently. And before I do, he has clearly said countless awful things throughout this campaign, any of which would disqualify any other candidates. Just this week, he declined yet again to release his tax returns, lied about getting a letter from the NFL agreeing with him that the debate shouldn't clash with football games, called Angela Merkel a moron, implied that Brazil brought the Zika virus on themselves, and encouraged a foreign powers hack of his political rival. Now, two of those didn't happen, but you're not sure which two, and that's kind of the point, isn't it? Because Trump hasn't said one crazy thing. He said thousands of crazy things, each of which blunts the effect of the others. It's the bed of nails principle. If you step on one nail, it hurts you. If you step on 1,000 nails, no single one stands out and you're fine. That is how Donald Trump has managed to say pretty much anything in this campaign, seemingly without consequences. And yet, even with that caveat, his response when asked about that speech from Khan stands out.
I saw him. He was, very emotional and probably looked like a nice guy to me. His wife, if you look at his wife, she was standing there. She had nothing to say. Maybe she wasn't allowed to have anything to say. You tell me, but plenty of people have written that. She was extremely quiet, and it looked like she had nothing to say.
Okay, for a start, his wife has explained that she chose not to speak because she gets too upset when she sees images of her dead son's face, you fucking arsehole. But I'm sorry. Please continue.
He said you have sacrificed nothing and no one.
Well, that sounds... who wrote that? Did Hillary's scriptwriters write it?
How would you answer that, Father? What sacrifice have you made for your country?
I think I've made a lot of sacrifices. I work very, very hard. I've created thousands and thousands of jobs, tens of thousands of jobs, built great structures. I've had tremendous success. I think
those are sacrifices?
Oh, sure, I think they're sacrifices.
No! No, they are absolutely not! They are self-serving half-truths from a self-serving half-man who has somehow convinced half the country that sacrifice is the same thing as success. Honestly, the main takeaway from these 2 weeks is that, incredibly, we may be on the brink of electing such a damaged, sociopathic narcissist that the simple presidential duty of comforting the families of fallen soldiers may actually be beyond his capabilities. And I genuinely did not think that that was a part of the job that someone could be bad at. And now, this. Do you profess your belief? I said, do you profess your belief tonight, brothers and sisters? Then there is only one thing left for us to do. Let's go. Vladimir Putin, the man most likely to be currently staring at a poster of a wolf while doing hammer curls. Vladimir Putin, the only man who misses the 80s more than David Lee Roth. Vladimir Putin. If Vladimir Putin leans in to whisper something in your ear, your best case scenario is that he's going to bite your ear off. That's the best thing that could happen to you in that particular circumstance. David Cameron, noted alleged swine fellatio enthusiast, David Cameron, Prime Minister of the UK, once put his dick in a dead pig's mouth. David Cameron was sucked and fucked by a Christmas ham. Is that better? Is that better? David Cameron received an unenthusiastic blowy from 1/3 of a BLT. Do you prefer that? Hillary Clinton. Can we talk about that new hairdo? No, we never, ever can. Hillary Clinton, the woman who exhibits either too much or too little of every human quality, depending on who you ask. Hillary Clinton, who, if she is not elected president this year, will take all you fuckers down with her. Tim Kaine, a human sweater vest. He's basically the portrait of a vice president that came with the frame. Tim Kaine is boring. He's a white gym sock pulled all the way up. He's a Granny Smith apple for dessert. He's a single dry hump in the missionary position. Mike Pence is a rice cooker covered in homophobic slogans, which is currently being held by a chimpanzee who could bite your face off. So, you know, relax, Democrats, it could have been worse. Turkey's leader, President Erdogan, this is a man who's had his genitals stomped on by a horse and lived to tell the story. If anything, that horse was going around injured for weeks afterwards. And in international politics, there is one hard and fast rule. There is no more dangerous enemy than a man with a horse-proof dick. Boris Johnson, a grown man who looks like a problem child at a daycare centre, is now Britain's new foreign secretary. Boris Johnson, a man with such horrifically poor judgment. He wasn't just Britain's most ardent advocate for pulling out of the EU. He may be its strongest argument for pulling out in general. Pull out, Barnaby, pull out! We don't want to accidentally make another Boris. That would be ghastly. Nigel Farage, leader of the UK Independence Party and three-time cover model for Punchable Face magazine, and Boris Johnson, a shaved orangutan with Owen Wilson's hair. Former London Mayor Boris Johnson, a man with both the look and the economic insight of Bam Bam from the Flintstones. Donald Trump, Rome burning in man form. Donald Trump. And I say that knowing that every time his name is said out loud, he has a shattering orgasm. Canada's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, has been enjoying a bit of a honeymoon since assuming office 6 months ago, with most news coverage focusing on events like that time he held 2 baby pandas, which is, yes, pretty cute. I mean, it's no The Rock holding 2 French bulldogs in a swimming pool, but it's close. It's close. Justin Trudeau, if you do a Google image search on him, you can find every poor fashion choice that he's ever made, from a 90s boy band member 1 week before entering rehab, to an LL Bean sweater model who just underwent a lobotomy, to Johnny Depp's evil twin. Queen Elizabeth II, the only becrowned woman who acts more entitled than a bride at her bachelorette party. This is my day. It's my day before my other day. Jeb Bush, the side of plain white rice that nobody ordered. John Key, put him under the Australian flag. He gets so... I want to hear him say flig. Make him say flig. John Key, you're the Prime Minister of New Zealand, not a real housewife of New Jersey. Rob Ford, everyone's favourite walking beefsteak tomato. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And I've got to say, Modi, classic out-of-towner move. Comes to New York, stays a few days and leaves with a slapdash caricature done in the Times Square area. You're a cliché, Modi. You're a cliché. Narendra Modi, new Prime Minister of India. He's a transformative, albeit controversial figure. Some worry he might be a little too harsh and authoritarian.
May the force be with you.
What? Wow. That is a power move right there. Standing next to Wolverine and throwing out Star Wars quotes. Secretary of State John Kerry.
To us here chanting, I love you, John Kerry.
Wait, I love you, John Kerry? Let's be clear, no lucid human has ever said those words. Even his wife has at most said, certain aspects of your personality are not displeasing, John. That's as far as anyone can physically go. The Pope. The only person on Earth who can pull off a white cape, Gwyneth. He's the only one. You look like a photo negative of Darth Vader. German Chancellor Angela Merkel. do you mind if I leave my phone on? Because, you know the phone a friend option? I'm the friend. Any questions regarding the IMF or Doctor Who is me? Hi, it's Angela. I can't hear you. It's so loud in this club. I'm so wasted right now. Woo! Robert Mugabe is not welcome here unless he's standing next to Billy Crystal shouting to infinity and beyond for no reason whatsoever. Norway, their immigration minister, Sylvie Listhaug, perhaps the most Norwegian-looking human being who has ever lived. President Obama, America's 44th not my president. Holy shit! Just look at him then and now. The president and Guantanamo Bay are aging together like the couple from Up. And it's starting to seem like Obama might be the wife who dies first. President Obama. The president means business because he's speaking from the I killed bin Laden and threw him in the ocean wing of the White House. And you can tell that Biden means business because he is locking eyes with the camera like a silverback gorilla who thinks you're challenging his alpha status. You want to dance, motherfucker? Iran's not going nuclear, but Joey B might. Do you want to dance with me? Rodrigo Duterte, and he is a colourful character, all of which has earned him a reputation as the Trump of the East, a title previously held by a burnt wonton covered in scarecrow pubes. Kim Jong-un, Supreme Leader, Triple Supreme Leader. I happen to think the most fitting would be Kim Lisi, Mother of Dragons, because, think about it, given his unpredictable violence and fantastical family history, he's perhaps the only person on Earth who could conceivably win the Game of Thrones. Putin, the Pope, and Clooney. Okay. For a start, kill, marry, fuck, respectively. That's the easiest round of that game I've ever played. That was very easy. And in the words of Adolf Hitler, that's our show. So thank you so much for watching. But the emotional highlight of the convention was undoubtedly a speech by Kiza Khan, a lawyer, immigrant, and father of a fallen Muslim American soldier.
Donald Trump, you're asking Americans to trust you with their future. Let me ask you, have you even read the United States Constitution? I will gladly lend you my copy.
Oh, shit. That is an American founding document being inspirationally used as a middle finger. I did not know that was technically possible. And here's the thing. It wasn't even the most devastating part of Mr. Khan's speech.
Have you ever been to Arlington Cemetery? Go look at the graves of brave patriots who died defending United States of America. You will see all faiths, genders, and ethnicities. You have sacrificed nothing and no one.
Wow. That engendered in me a level of emotion that I did not think was possible after 16 months of this depressing campaign and 39 years on Earth as a British person. And yet, the truth here is, however incredible the surrogate speeches are, conventions are really judged by the performances of the two people on the party's ticket. So, how did they fare? Well, let's start with Tim Kaine, a human sweater vest. He's basically the portrait of a vice president that came with the frame. His speech was exactly as boring as you would expect, with the exception of his almost impressively bad Trump impression.
It's going to be great, believe me. We're going to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it, believe me. We're going to destroy ISIS so fast, believe me.
What the fuck was that? That doesn't sound like him at all. How is this man going to win an election if he couldn't even win a game of cranium? I don't know, is it Jackie Gleason? Brad Garrett? Fuck it, Tim, just mould whoever it is out of clay. We have no chance here. And as for Hillary Clinton, on the night of her historic nomination, she stood before the nation in full Pitbull cosplay. She had a genuinely stupid amount of balloons dropped on her head. And in between, delivered a speech focusing on the actual job requirements of being president.
I sweat the details of policy, whether we're talking about the exact level of lead in the drinking water in Flint, Michigan, the number of mental health facilities in Iowa, or the cost of your prescription drugs. Because it's not just a detail if it's your kid, if it's your family. It's a big deal.
It was a kind of interesting approach. Instead of soaring rhetoric, the bulk of her speech was basically, I'm going to micromanage the shit out of this office. I'm going to get granular as fuck. Now drop the balloons and I will count them all. I'm all about the details. It was definitely a restrained speech to close a convention, especially when you compare it to the week before when Donald Trump essentially opened his mouth and exhaled a swarm of locusts. But now that both conventions are behind us, maybe we should try and take stock of what they have taught us about the current state of our two political parties. The DNC showed the Democrats to be a coalition of constantly squabbling, if fundamentally like-minded Katy Perry fans. And as for the RNC, it showed that the Republican Party doesn't seem to currently exist. Because, to all intents and purposes, we didn't really get a Republican convention this year. I mean, sure, there was a Cleveland-based gathering of delegates featuring all of Donald Trump's favourite family members and Tiffany, and celebrities whose most notable upcoming projects include the Emmy Awards in Memoriam Reel. Probably, but... Yes, a string of voting restrictions was struck down this week in Wisconsin, Texas, and most notably North Carolina, birthplace of Charlie Rose, Vince McMahon, Gallagher, and Fred Durst, or as I like to call them, the real Mount Rushmore. All three states were criticised for enacting laws with a racially discriminatory effect, but the Fourth Circuit had particularly strong language for North Carolina.
The court called it the most restrictive voting law North Carolina has seen since the era of Jim Crow, saying the law's provisions target African Americans with almost surgical precision.
Wow. Targeting African Americans with almost surgical precision. That is not a phrase you ever want to hear outside of a marketing meeting for Dark and Lovely Healthy Gloss Shea Butter Relaxer. I think it's okay for me to tell that joke. I'm pretty sure that joke is fine. I'm about 80% confident we have no problem there. The point is, when you hear what North Carolina's voter ID law contained, it is hard to disagree with that court.
The law required voters to show certain photo IDs that white voters were more likely to possess and eliminated other voter access tools like same-day registration and a full week of early voting. Scaling back early voting effectively eliminated one Souls to the Polls Sunday, where African-American churches provide transportation for voters.
It's true, they limited Souls to the Polls, which is not to be confused with my charity foundation, Souls to the Polls, which sends shoes to Polish people, despite the fact they haven't asked for them, don't need them, and have repeatedly asked me to stop. Now, to be fair, at the time, politicians in North Carolina were insistent that this bill was passed for good reasons.
Republican State Representative David Lewis chaired the Elections Committee when that bill passed. He says it makes the voting process fairer.
Even if you want to attest or believe that we did something for partisan advantage, it certainly wasn't done with a racially discriminatory intent.
That is an amazing pushback. Oh, I'm happy to let you say we did this to disenfranchise Democrats, but not black people. Please paint me as the correct kind of arsehole. Please do me that good. Good day, sir. I said good day. Unfortunately, As the court pointed out, race clearly was a factor, given that before the law passed, legislators specifically requested data on voting practices by race. And then, upon receipt of the race data, the General Assembly enacted legislation that restricted voting and registration in 5 different ways, all of which disproportionately affected African Americans. And just think about that. They didn't just go with their gut and think it would be discriminatory. They got the spreadsheets, crunched the numbers, and they knew it would be. I don't know how you did it, North Carolina, but I think you officially moneyballed racism. Forget first in flight. Your new state motto should be North Carolina, ignorance at its smartest. But for now, let's move on. Let's move on to Turkey, a.k.a. I'm Jon Oliver. Thank you so much for joining us. And we begin this evening with the 2016 election, or as it's more commonly known, what did I do to deserve this? I always tried to be a good person. Is this because I stole candy once in 4th grade? Please stop punishing us. 2016. This week saw the first presidential debate where, as I'm sure you know by now, Donald Trump's performance consisted mainly of an incoherent jumble of sniffles and nonsense, like a racist toddler coming out of dental surgery. And it all culminated in this amazing assertion.
I think my strongest asset, maybe by far, is my temperament. I have a winning temperament. I know how to win.
That is an incredible statement. If he had looked straight into the camera and said, I am a small Korean woman, it would have been more believable. And for the record, you can't incoherently rant about having the best temperament. That is a claim that disproves itself. It's like getting a forehead tattoo that says, I have excellent judgment. But this week, we then saw what a winning temperament actually means. It's a temperament that allows you to insist that you won something that you demonstrably lost. Because Trump spent the last 7 days citing his victories in what he called final debate polls, peppering his rallies with boasts like this.
And so we won every single online poll, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of voters. Almost every single poll had us winning the debate against crooked Hillary Clinton. Every single online poll said we won, which is great. Every single online poll.
Okay, first of all, he did not win every single online poll. He certainly didn't win this actual BuzzFeed poll about whether candy corn is good. And if you're wondering who did win that, it was BuzzFeed, you idiots. BuzzFeed wins every BuzzFeed poll. Now, the clear problem with online polls is that you can vote anonymously as many times as you want. That is how, when a British government agency held a Name Our Ship poll, the people's overwhelming choice was Boaty McBoatface. It's also how, when there was an internet vote on where Pitbull should perform, he ended up, and this is true, in an Alaska Walmart. And yet, Trump kept citing these nonsense polls, as did his media boosters like Sean Hannity.
If you look at all the online polls, The Hill, Time.com, Slate, I mean, the list was really long. Trump won the debate in these online polls. Everyone's going to say, Hannity, they're not scientific. I hear what you're saying.
Do you, though? I'm not sure you do. In fact, I'm not even sure you hear what your own company is saying, because Fox News sent out an internal memo this week saying that such polls, quote, do not meet our editorial standards. Which is shocking, since I was pretty sure Fox News' only editorial standards were all ladies must be 8s or above and try not to say the N-word. And by Thursday, the Trump campaign's insistence that online polls were just as good as real ones was beginning to drive people nuts.
The polls that happened that night, the night of the debate, the snap polls, the ones that happened online, those all showed Mr. Trump winning in a huge way.
What scientific poll had Donald Trump winning? Give me one scientific poll. Everything else was those are fan polls, man. Those are polls that like computer programmers can mess with. Those aren't real.
I understand that Hillary is going to have support from the insiders and from the media. Mr. Trump's going to have support from the grassroots and from the people.
Jason, you've been doing this a while. You know those are bogus.
Look how frustrated he is. Chuck Todd's head is about to explode. And you know that this pains him because he's talking to a fellow goatee wearer. And usually they have to stick together against a world that makes fun of their ridiculous facial hair. And while all this was going on, there was an even more inexplicable narrative developing. Because, to be fair, Trump did score a few points early on against Hillary Clinton, and he could have spent the whole week talking about those. But instead, he fixated on one particular thing she said towards the end of the night.
And one of the worst things he said was about a woman in a beauty contest. He called this woman Miss Piggy. Then he called her Miss Housekeeping because she was Latina. Donald, she has a name.
Where did you find
her
this?
name?